As long as one of us is scared to death, that works. Because I still, and even when I was going into surgery, I wasn't all that concerned about why. Because I give God the credit for that. I realize that's not always an easy thing to do. But we have sickness in our life. We have trials. We have evil. I think you can consider all that as evil. The storms in our life, and there's truly storms. We had, the one I remember is Ivan. About wiped out 12 of my trees in my yard. Got everything but my house. I was on a trip at the time, and I thank God for that. We were going to a prophecy conference in Myrtle Beach, and at the time we left, we wasn't sure that's where the hurricane wasn't going to land. But in calling Michelle, she went by to see if the house was still there, and she said, "It's amazing. The trees are laying all around it. Your house hasn't been touched." God is there. We're not free from these things, and we're not helpless in them. But we can be victorious over them if we allow God to work in our lives and just accept that we must go through storms. Now, would that mean that God wasn't with me if my house had been totally destroyed? Not at all. Please understand that things that God does, appreciate them. And then find out what He would have you do and why He would have you do it and who you should witness to in regards to your strength in going through whatever trial or tribulation you have. We're not free from it. We're not helpless in it. But we can be victorious over those things that we do. Now, I've lost to where I was at, but there's the curious, the concerned, and the committed. And these trials, these miracles that He gives, is a illustration, if you will, an illustration of what we have to go through in our lives. 4 evils, if not others. But we got storms in our lives. We have storms in our lives. We will literally confront evil, which is illustrated here with a demon possession. You and I will get sick. I think that's how I got off onto my cancer. You and I will get sick. We will have sickness in our life. You know, every one of us in here is going to die. Christ, and we're going to hear about this when we get to Jairus' daughter, but we brought Jairus' daughter back to life. You know, today, she's dead, and she's staying that way. It's not going to change. You and I are going to die. We're going to stay that way. Death is going to be a part of our life until Christ returns. That's not a problem. We must go through these things. Are we committed? Do we know what God would have us to do, and are we going through these trials, if you will, these tribulations, and being a testimony to those who don't know yet how to cling to God and how to work with Him on it? There's very few in this these miracles that He illustrated to. Just the disciples, just the committed ones, if you will. Just His church. And this is for you. This area talked about the miracles for the crowd to be curious about. And the progress of that, of those concerned. So what this is for the next couple of Sundays at least, is your commitment. He's talking to the church. He's talking to you and I. Those that are committed. Now, if you're not sure you're committed, then I can't be sure for you either. But you need to make sure that you're committed to Christ. And then these things apply to you. Now, I'm going to go through the first one. Calms a storm. I don't have any particular illustrations. I already mentioned one, Ivan, in my case. You'll experience others. But one day Jesus said to His disciples, now, understand that the disciples had a part in this. I'll show you what that is. But Christ told them to get on the boat. He told them to go across the lake. And there's a big storm. It was the lake is itself about 600 feet below sea level, and it has a lot of canyons and so forth, and that happens quite a bit. But God, or Jesus, told them to do that. One day Jesus said to his disciples, let's go over to the other side of the lake. So they got into a boat and set out. As they sailed, he fell asleep. God got tired, or Christ got tired while he was down here, and he wasn't worrying about it. Now, I'm assuming this was a sailboat. I'm not really sure. A fishing boat, a sailboat. I'm not sure all fishing boats didn't have a sailboat. I'm not sure. I can't imagine them rowing all the way across that lake, but that might have been it too. But there was those that are working. There were those that are working while Christ slept. The squall came down on the lake so that the boat was being swamped, and they were in great danger. The boat was being swamped, and they were in great danger. I remember when I was on a Colorado canoe trip with the boys that I think when we loaded our canoe, we had about this much left over, what's called draft, I think. But it was very close to the water. We were loaded down, paddling 50 miles down the Colorado River. I had my two sons, David and John, with me. And there was some waves on the it was a very wide place in the river. Colorado River can get a couple of miles wide in places. And the waves were coming, and they weren't vicious waves like it's describing here. They're just rolling waves. Well, we got to rowing down, and one wave just, I've forgotten if it overtook us or came toward us, but it's basically going the same speed we were, and just pouring water into the canoe. And it was getting ready to swamp us. We had to beat yourselves. You can get swamped pretty quick. It doesn't have to be wild water. But we had to beat yourselves and take our stuff out of the boat and turn it up, or out of the canoe and turn it upside down. But these people were getting swamped. And it wasn't a pleasant camping trip they were on. The disciples went out and went and woke him saying, Master, Master, we're going to drown. Why aren't you up here doing something? We've never done that, have we, with the Lord? He got up and rebuked the wind. Now, this is a miracle. This is one of them he's talking about. He's handling the storm. He got up. And all these miracles, by the way, are terrible things to happen to people, but they all have a happy ending. Now, I said I was going to tell you, in all of these miracles, these four we're talking about, of where he is really demonstrating his godship, if you will, his power to his followers, to those committed to him. In this case, it's just the disciples, whoever they could crowd on the boat. I'm assuming at least 12 disciples were on there. He's just talking to you and I, if you will. And they had participation in it. They were crying for help. And that's the only place that their participation has anything to do with any of these. They were crying for help. And you're allowed to do that. You want to do that. If you're having trouble, take it to the Lord. Take it to the Lord. And where it's a storm, leave it up to him. In fear and amazement, they asked one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. Who is this? It was well known in their religious community, if you will, that God handled the elements. They knew he handled the storms and the rain and all that. And so recognize when he's on the ship or on the boat doing this, who is this? They have a very definite question. And, of course, we have the answer, but they didn't at that time. But he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. Now, all of these four miracles are grouped right together. It's thought that Luke is the only one that grouped them together. You'll find them in the other Gospels, but they're at various places depending on what, instead of doing it chronologically,